Welcome to episode 8 of A Minute with Mud on the series of Mud's Shattered Operating System Phase 2. This is when I met my PhD ex off the streets. I was volunteering at One World Cafe in a community cafe in Salt Lake City, and I'd been fine sleeping on the streets outside somewhere because I'd always want to sleep outside. And one of the employees there was Indonesian, not Nazli was his nickname, and he invited me to live with him at his place because it was getting really cold, and I reluctantly agreed. I was living in a house with 3 or 4 other Indonesian guys. He was an awesome dude, played bass guitar. We had great times. It was great when he would learn words off the English dictionary, and he would study a new word all the time, and vagabondish was one of the words that always made us laugh because I was vagabondish. Anyway, eventually I tried my best to stay away from my friend that was born on the same day, which was her daughter, born on the same day as me. So I kind of figured I don't want to do that because I wasn't comfortable with who I was in the first place. And she had an eating disorder, the anorexia or bulimia. But she was an awesome person, just turning 18 years old, and they had come from Florida, but I guess her mom really wouldn't let me go, so we went to a concert, a free concert at the library in Salt Lake. It was awesome. Coco, someone was awesome reggae players. They did some amazing Bob Marley covers, and I was still drinking, doing my homeless bit, and still very, very vulnerable. Well, eventually we ended up making love the first time, and her daughter caught us, and I was really sorry about that. I was like, wait a minute, is this okay? And they had invited me over to watch movies prior to that, things like that. Like, she just would not leave me alone. And so after that, in the next morning, her daughter came and brought me McDonald's, I think, or Burger King, and said, my mom wanted me to give this to you because she was working at the library on a CIA contract for soil sampling. I guess the concept was to take soil and make a map of soils to where when they located bombs or anything illegal that they could find where it came from or originated from based on the isotopes, because she'd been working with a mass spectrometer, and there's only a few of those in the world in the first place. I remember going to a conference with her about that years later, and some guy saying, just between you and me, there's another one coming and all this stuff. So she's a geoisochemist, paleontologist, something. Anyway, so I decided to move in with them, and she kind of convinced me to move in, and she was enabling me, and I was accepting. I was drinking a whole lot with her, crazy wild time. She was a very codependent person. At the time she was married, but her husband was in Florida while she was in Utah, and her daughter had told me that they would only get together like once a year. So it was obviously a dead relationship. So I didn't feel that bad, even though I felt bad to be with her. I've been still working on trying to make millions of dollars doing my intermediary stuff with the gold, diamonds, oil, bank instruments, and I had finally gotten one deal, but we had gotten into a domestic in Wendover on the border of Utah and Nevada, And I tried to stop her from taking a bunch of pills, and we were both drunk, and there wasn't a whole lot of physical anything, because she had broken her leg during a mosh pit in a bar, and she was 45 and I was 28. It was a very odd situation. But she had deleted all my contacts at that time. So I never did eventually earn the millions of dollars I would have gotten off of that deal. One time when I wanted to escape, I put an ad out on Craigslist about trying to find someone else, and she had found that ad, and so what happened was, and I left for a couple days just trying to get away, and I came back and she had, I guess somebody had knocked on the door, and she was like, "Oh, stay in the bedroom." And so I did, but I looked outside. She was talking to this old guy with a clipboard, and I was like, "Okay, what's this? What'd she do this time?" Because she was very, I don't know if it's the Cancer part in her. She was a Cancer sun sign, but when she got mad, she would break things, a lot of things. Like, I gave her heart necklaces all the time, and she would throw them away or flush them even. It was a very trauma bonding relationship. I guess her father was a real bad alcoholic gambler too, and she came back in and said, "Oh, by the way," threw a business card on the bed and said, "Oh, by the way, I called Homeland Security on you." And I thought, what the hell? And she said, "Yeah, I told them you wanted to blow up Yellowstone, because when I was 18 and my animosity, I thought, how would I destroy the world naturally?" So that was that. Months later, back when I came back to North Dakota, because I had gone back, it was an on and off relationship, very destructive. And my cousin told me, "Oh, Homeland Security's looking for you," and I was thinking, what? For reals? And so eventually I called them and I told them, "Stop wasting your time, stop looking for me, I'm not going to blow up Yellowstone." And they, the conversation was interesting, because they kept wanting me to try to come and see them and talk with them, and I was like, "No, we're talking right now. I'm not coming to go to Guantanamo Bay or be interrogated or I don't know what." But at the end of the phone call, it was very unusual, because the guy said, "Oh yeah, and call your mom." And I'm all nervous, like, "Geez, man, I just have to do this. I just had to talk to this guy." And I was like, "What? Talk to your mom? Call your mom?" And he's like, "Yeah. When I talked to her, she said to have you call her if you got a hold of me." So that was very stupid. But yeah, when I got my next drunk in public, it was at a party, and it was a very loud party. They brought me to the detox, because when I drank. I would drink to black out. I would drink to just anything, get away, and the spirits would always overtake me. I wasn't actually a violent drunk, but I had said a lot of things. I would mess with a lot of people's tender places and try to help them heal their wounds. I thought I was doing a good deed, in a way, in a off-put kind of way, where I was like, "Oh, that hurts you? That hurts your feelings?" That kind of stuff. So tried to get them to work through it. Obviously, that was a dumb thing to do. Don Miguel Ruiz in the Beyond Fear book explains that, where it's not, he actually did that as well, but I'm not going to do that. I don't do that anymore. But I remember asking the cops what their astrology signs were and messing with them, and then I was like, "Oh, did you check Homeland Security?" They're like, yeah, you're good. So, all that. On the topic of being arrested as well, I remember before my coma, I was really upset, and I said something about my ex-wife and her sister were driving me, and I said something upsetting about their mom, which is a beautiful soul. She was one of the most amazing people I've ever met, and so I was just like, "Fuck it, I'm walking." So I started walking, and I was angry walking, and a cop from a different jurisdiction came and pulled over and kept talking to me, and I kept trying to ignore him. But then I was like, "Finally, what do you want?" And he's like, "Well, have a seat right here." And he pointed down to the curb And so I was like, all right, fine. I started to sit down, and then next thing you know, I was like 20 feet away being shocked. And I was like, what the hell? You know, I drank a lot of tequila that night, so I was still coercive. But then I remember the charge lowering, and then he hit it again, so I got shot twice, these darts in me, and I started peeing myself. So I was like, oh my God, I was so humiliated, so I just laid down. And then the cops came, and they're like, haven't you ever seen cops? And I was like, fuck cops. And they're like, ooh, big talk, you know, and there's like 6 firefighter cops around me. I got slammed up against the wall when I went to jail. Just like, and he's like, you're lucky you didn't shit yourself. Well, people shit themselves. And I was in Salt Lake. But then the next morning, they let me out, and the cop was there. And I was like, dude, why'd you tase me? And he's like, I don't know, it must have been your shirt. Your shirt must have scared me or something. And it was a Tool shirt. I don't understand why he did that, but I guess the universe did, because I was very upset. So I needed to be taken out, I guess. But then I hugged him. I was like John Lennon back then. Very John Lennon-like. Just, you know, even my nickname for a while was Lennon. But, you know, in the humanitarian, my first real powerful phases of just wanting to help everybody. And my father was a little bit annoyed by that, and other people too were like, you should sue them. I'm like, no, let it be. Even though I probably could have won that case. I never got charged, and no talk about it. I know another friend in Hood River had told me a similar story like that. But anyway, on that, continuing on. So I ended up with her. Did our best. A lot of trauma, just lots and lots of trauma. A lot of alcoholism, on both ends. And I was off and on for quite a few years. You know, I was 20, 28 when I moved in with her. 29, 30. And then when I was back in Fargo, I was living with my cousin Joe at his apartment, doing real dumb shit again. And that's when I got the no bar bitch rule, which might sound a little derogatory, but I first brought somebody from the bar home because I was always just flirting. I didn't want to do anything with anybody. I was just trying to have a good time. So I constantly got approached. And it's just really hard to say no. I was just trying to have fun, and then it'd get to that point where it's like, well, are we going to sleep together? And I'm like, no, I'm good. But I did bring her back to that apartment, and I tried. I was really drunk, so it didn't work out, you know. And I woke up the next morning, and she was in the bed with my cousin, and he hates it when I tell that story. But anyway, then, you know, we did our thing, and that was that. And then we'd kind of been off and on, but I kept passing out during sex because I was so drunk. I didn't want anything. I was trying to leave my PhD ex out. And she's like, I had it, you know, I've had it. So, but I guess my PhD ex had written her a big letter saying how evil I was and trying to get her to get away from me. And then she came back to me, wanting me back. But anyway, on that birthday year, when I was about to turn 30, I had pawned my computer. I'd been doing all kinds of stuff, and I wanted to just die that year. And then I woke up in detox and started going to NA. And NA did a whole lot of changing for me. It's like what one guy in NA said to me was, NA fucked getting fucked up for me. NA fucked getting fucked up for me. So that's kind of what happened. And for 2.5 years, I'd stayed sober completely. No weed even. And we'd moved around. I think we moved to Houston. Yeah, we moved to Houston. And her family wasn't happy about being with me, her being with me, that kind of stuff too. And my mom probably wasn't either. You know, the age difference, which is, you know, when spirits meet each other, there's no real age difference. So I remember going to one of my last meetings there. You know, they were different meetings. But I remember saying how I would never feel human unless I hugged all 8 billion people in the world at the same time, or I've stepped on every mile of the earth and all kinds of stuff like that. I tried to give back information, and assist people getting clean, but it just wasn't working out for me anymore. Same with now. I've gone to so many support groups within the last year, all different kinds, and they're interesting, but they really aren't educational. They're more of a dampening of my abilities, I think, so I could actually help more people if I did my own thing. So when we were in Houston, we lived in a cockroach infested weekly $700 some a week hotel, so it was a struggle for both of us. And she was going to get a job in Galveston at a hotel, and she ended up having a heart attack while she was getting a drug test. While she was about to get a drug test, she started having heart pains, and so she actually did have a heart attack, had to have stents and things put in her. So for the next few days I was scrambling to try to find, help, calling all kinds of places, and we ended up getting a couple of nights at hotel rooms, and then on Craigslist it was working for the carnival, and if you have a car especially, so we joined the carnival. A few days after she got out of the hospital, we were working in the carnival, and then we were traveling, we're going through, I was doing the hoops guy. I was like, win one to make it, win one to make it, or sink one to make it, or something, some kind of spiel. And it was weird because a lot of there was women that were like, oh, I'm just gonna screw a carny or something. It was terrible, man, terrible being a sex object. I really feel for women on that one. I always have. So treat people like people, not objects. So we traveled through Arkansas, Louisiana, in those areas. And if I would have stayed on the carnival, we would have gone all the way up to Lisbon, North Dakota, where I, could have gotten off there. But she ended up getting a job in Maryland, so we ended up moving to Maryland. And on the way to Maryland, we went to Tallahassee, Florida, to grab some of her stuff. And I was in the house, and her ex-husband came home, and her daughter and her mom were like, run. It was one of those, cross it off my bucket list. There's a lot of those things there. So anyway, Tallahassee, Florida, I didn't quite like that well. It was way too humid. People were kind of pompous as well. But then we went to Maryland. We lived on a ranch for 2 years. The first week or two, we stayed at the university next to the Chesapeake Bay, and there was a dolphin, there was stingrays. It was really beautiful, interesting. I guess Leonardtown, Maryland was the town that we lived in, and that was the very first capital of the U.S., I guess, before it changed. So yeah, we're like 50 miles south of Washington, D.C. when the Occupy movements were happening. Never did go up there and check that part out, but we did go take a trip up there and went to the Smithsonian and things like that. It was interesting, but they were working on the Lincoln thing, so the pool was empty. I always wanted to see the pool, like when Forrest Gump does that part in the movie. Prior to that, about a year or so before that, we had gone to Big Bend, Texas, which is where she was doing her paleontology work, and she found an Alamosaurus dinosaur, which actually is still in the Dallas Museum. She's born and raised and from Texas area, so we traveled around there a little bit, got to see the Rio Grande, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, we're doing this on dimes, and struggles here and there. She wanted to marry me, all that kind of, like, I felt like a prisoner. I really did. And so karma comes around. I felt that way. I suppose I had treated my recent ex a little bit wrongly in that sense. There was no kids involved with my first, with the PhD, but with this one, she had kids, and I was really I was staying in the relationship for the kids. But I'll explain more about that later. In Maryland was awesome. We lived on a ranch, took care of horses. That was the woman. We were living in the same house, but it was split up. And so we'd help in the Amish communities. We're very amazing people. And the horseshoer, we'd have to go pick up the horseshoer. And sometimes we'd I'd do chores. I would clean up the horse poop, and there was turkeys. There was a Saint Bernard dog. There was a few cats, and to get money off of rent, and so that would help. But it was in the middle of nowhere, so I couldn't really get a job. And every time I tried to get a job, she kind of would sabotage that for me in a way of like, if I had money, I would have been able to leave. So it was the porn addictions and porn stuff that's when I learned that. I did a lot of research because she kept saying, "You're addicted to porn. You're something cheating on me," that kind of stuff. And like her therapist had told her to remind me that a professor in Maryland was killed by his wife because of the porn. And so I was like, oh my God, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out. So eventually one day I just let her see me do it. And then she's like, that's it. So then she got me a bus ticket back home to my mom, where I had stayed for maybe a year. That's when lifecouldhappen.com came. Because I was still looking for my purpose, still searching for that purpose, even though it was to create as much harmony as possible. There was the avenues weren't there. I was like trying to make money online, all these different things. But it was a very interesting, a lot of things we'd done together. I went out soil sampling in Idaho once with her, and we'd have to do GPS, and I was brushing. It was really kind of neat. And then in Maryland, when she was working at the mass spectrometer, I would go to McDonald's or Starbucks to do work, trying to make money online while she was working. And I got to scrape off old shark fossil enamel for her to do tests, because she was testing the water. So on the topic of the isotopes, I wanted to mention that hair, any part of your hair, you can check, you can see what we've eaten, all the way down to the isotopes, the smallest, tiniest thing. I learned a whole lot of stuff doing that. So, there's some people that say, keep your hair, it gives you power. Well, it's basically your history. Like the natives it might be a good thing. But then if you look at it in another sense of the monks, when they shave their head, they're more connected with source. So that's how I feel. I used to have long hair multiple times, but I feel like, being hairless, which I do once in a while. I'll be doing that here again shortly, where I just pull out all the hair, and there's a machine that does it. So, yes, on that topic, then just to move through all of that quickly as possible. She was a victim of a lot of things. It seemed like I've always gotten into relationships with women that had a lot of problems, and I think that was partially because of my own codependency and love addictions. So I'm not going to do that anymore. Last year was a good example of that. I tried to just stay universal. It's always been just because love. I've always explained to him up front in that phase of nobody wants to hear about the red flags. Nobody wants to listen to it because it's that biological mechanism that gets you to have a baby within the first little while. But it's not about making babies anymore, especially in America. Love's become like a cliche. There's this hookup culture and all that shit. So there's no real sacred entity involved in relationships as much. It's all just this complex doing. When I love the movie Isn't It Romantic? Which towards the end, she's like about to break up the wedding, and then she's like, I love myself. So, I want to see people loving themselves, and I want to continue loving myself even more. It's only been about 1.5 years since I've started doing that. So, the movie Standing Up for Sunny, I saw last night. It's an Australian movie, but it's an amazing movie about overcoming your things with humor, and how being a little bit lighter about things is a lot easier. I've been very serious. I've been extremely way too serious and forceful and angry about things instead of just allowing and being responsible. So responsible, you have that, break that down, response-able. So I'm able to have a response. It just depends on what it would be. I understand my communication is totally off. It's not very fluid or easy to understand, very simple. I'm just trying to think these things, and I haven't really written anything down. I know the ACEs test, I score an 8 on that. Just a lot of my anger and a lot of my problems I attribute to bacterial imbalance, because as this video, I'll share the video of quite a few years ago, and it's a TED Talk where it talks about how, we're 10% human cells. So out of those 10% human cells, stacked up against the 90% non-human cells, the DNA in those cells are even more. So that's 100 times more DNA. So the DNA in our bodies are very limited human-wise. So our abilities human-wise aren't actually operating our system. So in a way, we could say we all have kind of a shattered operating system, especially when we're eating the crap we do, not taking care of ourselves, eating way too much. The fasting is a great thing to do. And I only say this based on experience because of last year when I was full-blown, full speed ahead, in more of a survival. I don't want to look at my past. I didn't want to heal from certain resentments, the people that had hurt me, or why I even put myself in those positions. But I did. I healed up my system, and then I saw it fade away again. So, our thoughts, our things. That brings me to before I close on this one, right after my coma, I would drink orange juice in the bars in Valley City, North Dakota, which I really don't like that place. There's a lot of flying monkeys, if anyone's ever learned about flying monkeys, and gaslighting, BS, backstabbers, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, when I was there, I had $1 and I played my 3 songs with my $1. But I wanted to hear that song "Disarm" by Smashing Pumpkins. And I remember I had to rewatch all the movies, even the Titanic, and all the music. My friend was like, "You know this band? I know you know this band." And it was Green Day, and I was like, I do, but I don't. So that's how it was when I was rebuilding my neurological connections to the person I was, with, I guess, maybe a new soul. It's still very confusing. But then that song came on. Nobody had gone to the jukebox. Nobody. So when we're in that state of complete oneness, we actually have a shit ton more powers. I'm afraid to go into the 5th density or 5th dimension, whatever you want to call it, and read minds and predict futures and those kind of things, because I don't feel like I belong. Like I don't want to be here anymore. It's just too beautiful, and then to see everyone around me not experiencing that beauty hurts me. So that's just one example. There's multiple other examples where you just have the thought. It's kind of like when you think of somebody and then they'll call. You're that aligned. You're that in the moment. And so your subconscious and your conscious filters can be used to our advantage. Everything's so fluid and just amazing energetically. They even say now that a 5th element that they listed is plasma, which is basically light or water. Same sort of composure or something like that. I'm not sure. You have to fact check everything. Confirmation bias is all I got to deal with. The vulnerability, and the only way to be able to to speak with people was like, I couldn't remember people's names, and I'd meet them over and over and over. And I remember one guy was saying, man, I met you like 10 times, and they were showing me annoyance, and I was thinking, oh shit, well, maybe if I just don't even worry about their names, just, if they say they know me, they know me. I'll just be a person. Just be a person. We put all these judgments and labels on each other, and that person's that person. Well, what if you didn't see that person for 10 years? And then you're like, oh, that's that same person. That's all you know. That's all you can classify the person as. But everyone changes every day. Everyone changes. Today is the full moon, March 9th, 2020. I suppose they say Mercury is done being in retrograde, which is not even, it doesn't go backwards, technically. It's just what the ancients used to think, it went backwards. So that's how, I suppose, the residue of it, thinking everything's going to be terrible for the next month because Mercury's in retrograde, which is a bunch of bullshit. So, I hope everyone has an amazing life, and we clear this and we can come together as one again. And it's inevitable. So, I mean, we can just wait, we can make it worse, we could do a lot of those things, but I'm choosing not to. These videos aren't my funnest ones. I wouldn't classify them as that. It's more of a just get my shit off my back, tell these stories so that if anybody does want to actually become connected with someone like me, then I wouldn't have to tell them everything or explain it. You know how difficult it gets after so long. It's like, I was in a coma and people are like, just let it go, let it go, let it go. Well, you go in a coma and you tell me how easy it is to let go. You know, so, you know, but I have empathy as well for them not understanding, for me not understanding them too. If I didn't have my coma, I would probably be just as dumb and shitty as half the population is. But we're all doing our best, and you know, blessings beyond blessings to everyone who's giving their all, who's staying here, who isn't just giving up and offing themselves. Because even at my best moments, I constantly just want to die. But it's not me wanting to die, it's my ego, the whole, everything that I see around me. I want to see this as dead, so that's why Planet Perfect Days came as a passion project just to keep me alive. And there was moments when I almost did not want to live anymore at all, even with that, you know, a few years back in Hood River, Oregon, and just everything was just, I had enough. And but Planet Perfect Days and the whole idea kept going. Like my friend Moses, I call him Moses because he was 14, he had a full beard and a walking stick. And when I would do a lot of volunteering at the senior center, you know, he'd come in and I'd always call him Moses. So but he told me it'd be when I was lifecouldappen.com, he'd be like, it'd be a shame if it didn't happen. And I always remember him saying that. So I'm gonna try. I've got to shed my old skin with these videos. And like I said, this is Mud's Shattered Operating System Phase 2. And I will clarify this in one video as best I can, because the ideas keep coming. And then I just want to keep going. So from that time till I was around 32 is when I left and moved back to North Dakota with my mom to live in my mom's basement, when lifecouldappen.com became. So namaste, blessings beyond blessings, peace, love, affection.